This is the Cardinals' year. This year has to be their year. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't, I do Packers fan, but it sure does up. I'm your host, Tom. Oh, look, it's the NFC West, the team that gave me nightmares for years and years and years. Great, Grossi. And today we have reached the final division in the NFC for predictions. If you're just tuning in now because you want to hear what I think about the NFC West, welcome. There's other videos for the rest of the divisions. But for each team, we talk about their offseason, talk about what they did last season, and on top of that, predict their floor and their ceiling for the upcoming season. And so, with that being said, let's start off with everyone's favorite dark horse. No, just mine? Fine. The Arizona Cardinals. And listen, I get it. I know that I am on the Arizona Cardinals bandwagon for a couple years now, thinking, okay, maybe this is where they get over the hump. Kyler Murray is not going to get hurt, play more consistently. The defense is finally going to take shape. And honestly, I got to say, me picking them as a dark horse for like the fourth year in a row, it's getting a little tiring.
Always ends the same.
It only ends once. Anything that happens before that is just progress.
It only ends once. Please just prove me right one time. Last year, for the Arizona Cardinals, I didn't expect them to do incredible things. I just said that maybe they could be a wild card team. I had their floor at 6-11 and their ceiling at 10-7, and they finished with an 8-9 record. So still within the margin of error. And the reason why I'm decently high on the Cardinals yet again this year is not because I think they're a Super Bowl contender, but they've added some pieces to their defense. I like what they've been doing with their team. I also think Jonathan Gannon has done a pretty good job because his expectations when he came to the team were not very high when he was doing some embarrassing things.
Shots, explosives.
Pew, pew. And taking a look at last season, they weren't bad by any stretch, but they were just painfully average at times. Taking a look at their offense, they were 12th in points per game scored. They had the 7th best rushing attack in the NFL, which was great, and they had the 18th best passing offense. Taking a look at their defense, they were right around the middle. They were 15th in points allowed per game. They were 20th in run defense and 14th in pass defense. So again, it's not bad by any stretch, but there's a lot of room for improvement. On top of that, I know Cardinals fans are talking about Kyler Murray and just what is the ceiling with him? How far can this team go with him as the quarterback? Obviously, he has a ton of athleticism, but I think he just needs a lot more support if they're going to be actual contenders. And taking a look at what they did this past offseason, their big acquisition was Josh Sweat from the Eagles and getting a pass rusher, something that they have needed for quite some time because the whole J.J. Watt thing did not work out. And in the draft, they added even more to their defense, bringing in Walter Nolan, Will Johnson, and if that defense is able to take a step this season and their offense is able to still establish the run, Kyler Murray is able to stay healthy within this division that I think is relatively open, they could finally make a wild card spot. Please. And then hopefully not lose. Unless it's against the Packers, then I hope they lose. And taking a look at their schedule this year, it really doesn't look that bad. Besides their divisional opponents, taking a look at some of their home games, they got to go up against the Packers and they got to go up against the Falcons and Jaguars. All three teams who could provide some problems for the Cardinals. Looking at their away schedule, though, they got the Cowboys, they got the Buccaneers, the Texans, and the Bengals. Again, they are going to have to go against the Rams, who I think are going to be pretty damn good. The Seahawks, I think, will be a wild card-ish contending team, and the 49ers, it kind of remains to be seen, but they have a pretty easy schedule. The point that I'm trying to make with the Cardinals is that it is not a bad path forward. And so if they were going to take a step this year, I feel like it's this season is now or never for Kyler Murray, and that they really need to figure out what they have. The team around him, Marvin Harrison Jr. hopefully taking a step. I know he did pretty well to end the season, but they really have to just figure it the hell out. Otherwise, they might be starting over at some positions. But overall, I have them having a floor a little bit higher than I had their floor last year at 7-10 and a ceiling of 10-7. I do think that this team can get to 10 wins if they get rolling, and hell, if Marvin Harrison Jr. is really good this year and that offense is clicking, they could even win a couple more games after that. But ultimately, I have them at a 10-7 ceiling. I think that they can achieve it, and if not, well, then I'll just never believe in the Cardinals again, which in that case, they might actually do well. Then you got the San Francisco 49ers. You know, the team that keeps on beating the Packers in the playoffs. I'm not upset. Last year, I had them with a 9-8 floor and 11-6 ceiling. They, of course, did not realize that and went 6-11. However, good God, all the injuries. But truly, the only thing that 49ers fans want this season is a healthy team.
Heavenly Father, are you praying?
And they sustain injuries to their offense, their defense. Brock Purdy got injured. Hell, maybe even Shanahan was walking around with a limp at some point. Their stats last year, they were 14th in points per game scored on offense. They were the 12th best rushing team. They were the 4th best passing team. Take that, Brock Purdy haters. I have no stock against Brock Purdy. I don't like the 49ers. Why am I defending him here? And then taking a look at their defense, not so good. They were 29th in points per game allowed. They were 18th in run defense, and they were 5th in pass defense. So that secondary definitely wasn't terrible, at least on the stat sheet, but there's obvious room for improvement. But at the same time, it's a little bit difficult to judge this team, similar to what we were talking about the Cowboys. It's tough to judge the 49ers because they were just eradicated by injuries last year. And taking a look at their offseason, they lost a whole bunch of veteran players. They lost Hargrave, they lost Deebo Samuel, they lost Ufanga, they lost Floyd, they lost a whole bunch of guys. And while I do think there will be some players that they will definitely miss, a lot of those guys were getting a bit older. I mean, even just take a look at Deebo Samuel. He did not have a good year last season, and so I don't think they'll miss him a ton. However, they really got to make sure that they are their best this year after coming off a very disappointing season and previously some Super Bowl windows. However, drafting Mykel Williams will definitely help in the run game. He was really good at that in college, and so if he's able to make an impact pretty early on, that should help the run defense. And ultimately, this has been the talk of the town with the 49ers, is their schedule, that it really is not too bad. Yes, within their division, I think they're going to face some competition. However, besides that, they got to go against, at home, the Falcons, the Jaguars. That's about it. I mean, like, they got the Bears, the Titans, the Panthers. Like, it's not terrible for them. All I'm saying is that these are winnable games. And for the 49ers, their away games are not bad either. Besides their divisional opponents, they got the Buccaneers and the Texans. There are 2 games that I have circled that could give them some problems. Other than that, I think those games are winnable. They got games against like the Saints, the Giants, the Browns, and the Colts. So they got a pretty good schedule. So all of that being said, locking up Brock Purdy with a major contract, and on top of that, if CMC is healthy this year, this team should at least be successful. And so because of that, I'm having a floor of 9-8. I don't think that they're going to be world enders, but I have a ceiling of 11-6. I think a combination of their schedule, on top of the fact that they still have a pretty talented roster, they can win a bunch of games. They're well coached, and ultimately they could find themselves back into the playoffs. I don't think that they're going to win the division because I think the Rams are a bit of a better team this year, but I still think they'll be contending for a wild card spot, which hopefully will not be against the Green Bay Packers. Then you got the Los Angeles Rams, and I'm going to just be very honest. If there's a team from the NFC West that I'm actually really high on, it is the LA Rams, because last year they went toe-to-toe with the eventual Super Bowl champions. They almost beat the Philadelphia Eagles, and they thought they were so back. And now they're already dealing with Matthew Stafford and the problems with his back. Rest up, Spider-Man. But last year, I had them with a floor of 7-10 and an 11-6 ceiling. They wound up having a 10-7 record, and we saw what they were able to do in the postseason. We talked about that Eagles game, and they kept it pretty darn close. But that game against the Vikings, they beat the absolute piss out of them, which makes me so happy. That defensive front is very, very scary. With Aaron Donald gone, they thought, oh, maybe this is not going to work out. Jared Verse said, hold my beer. Unless they're working out together, then Jared Verse is a little bit afraid. But ultimately, the Rams had a really nice season. Taking a look at their stats, they didn't do anything crazy on offense. They were 20th in points per game scored. They had the 24th worst rushing attack, and they had the 10th best passing attack. And so running the football is going to be key to their identity here, right? Blake Corum has not really worked out a ton, though I still have some hope for him. They did draft another running back, and so maybe that's going to make a difference. But the fact that they got rid of Cooper Kupp, who did not have his best season offseason and they replaced him with Davante Adams, I really like that move. Davante Adams, I still think, has at least 1 to 2 years left in the tank of pretty damn good play. Linking him up with Matthew Stafford, I think, is only going to make that offense better. So I'm excited to see what it's going to look like. And then taking a look at defense, they averaged 17th in points per game allowed. They had the 22nd worst run defense and 20th pass defense. So while they were able to get after the quarterback, they still need to improve in these numbers. And if they have an even better pass rush, or if they get some improved linebacker play and their secondary is a bit better, that's why Jalen Ramsey was rumored to go to the Rams, I can see the Rams having a pretty damn good season. On top of that, getting Ford as a defensive tackle and also getting some depth on the offensive line at center is definitely going to help things. And honestly, within this division, I think the Rams are going to be favored going forward. Taking a look at their schedule, another one, it is not too bad. Besides their division rivals, they got to go up against the Texans at home, the Buccaneers, and the Lions. I think those are going to be some really tough games, and of course that Lions game is going to be really, really good. However, it's definitely not impossible to have a good record at home this season for them. And then for away games, going up against the Eagles and Ravens is definitely going to be difficult, but if they're able to play like they did last season against the Eagles, they're at least going to keep it close. And if Jared Verse is able to get even better his sophomore season, watch out. It's going to be scary. And so for the Rams, I see that defense could potentially be ascending. The offense should still be really damn good, especially if they're able to establish a run game. I have their floor at 10-7 and their ceiling at 12-5. Like I said, I'm really high on the Rams. I do think that they are going to win at least 10 games, and their ceiling is pretty darn high. I think it could go beyond 12 games. It's just going to be a matter of how quick that offense is able to click. Are they going to have a balanced attack with a good run game? And if that defense can get a bit better, yeah, I think they're going to win this division. And then finally, you got the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks, they won 10 games last year. I had a floor of 8-9 for them and a 10-7 ceiling. They wound up getting a 10-7 record. And while there were some Seahawks fans that were complaining that they should have made the playoffs, they did lose pretty badly to the 7th seed, who was the Green Bay Packers. Listen, all the times that you've won against us, you can lose this game. And so heading into this season, there were a lot of changes for the Seahawks, who looked to at least be on the verge of being a wild card team. Geno Smith went off to the Raiders. DK Metcalf got traded to the Steelers.
You've left out one of the chief characters. Samwise the Brave.
They brought in Sam Darnold. They brought in Cooper Kupp. They gave a bunch of money to Ernest Jones, Reed, and also Lawrence. And ultimately for the Seahawks, their story has been, ever since they brought in Mike McDonald, is how good that defense is going to be. And ultimately, what I really like about the Seahawks offseason is the fact that they drafted Zabel early on, making that interior offensive line better, which they definitely need to do, especially when you're going up against the Rams. But that was one of their biggest problems last year. And Sam Darnold is not the most mobile QB. He was able to have some success with the Vikings when he was having some good offensive line play. And I have no doubt that he'll be able to do pretty well with this Seahawks scheme. I don't know if he's going to be their franchise quarterback, but then again, I don't think that's why he was brought in. However, this is a team that I think is ready to compete at least for a wild card spot at this moment. Taking a look at their offense, they were ranked 18th in points per game scored. They were the 28th worst team running the football. That has to get better. I know they have a history of injured running backs, but if this team actually wants to be a contender, they need to get better there. And they were ranked 8th in terms of passing offense, so they were putting up a bunch of yards. Taking a look at that defense, like we were just talking about, they were top 15 in nearly every category. They were 12th in points allowed per game, they were 16th in run defense, and they were 11th in pass defense. Definitely improvements for where they were in previous seasons. And taking a look at their schedule, their home games, they got the Buccaneers and the Texans and the Vikings potentially, if they're going to be good, as potential problems, or at least going to be some tough teams. And looking at their away games, they're going up against the Steelers, the Jaguars, Commanders, Falcons, and of course within their division as well. And so it's definitely not the easiest path forward, but I think that there are some very winnable games here, especially if that defense takes a step like it was doing last year. So ultimately, if McDonald's able to coach up that defense even further, which is the reason that he was brought in, I'm not insanely worried about their offense. I do have some questions about Sam Darnold. I do have some questions about their running attack, and Cooper Kupp being on the Seahawks is not moving the needle a ton for me, considering he didn't have the best season last year, but I think at bare minimum, he is going to be serviceable. You also have JSN there too, who's pretty damn good. No more Tyler Lockett, but they're at least getting younger, except for Cooper Kupp. So for me, the combination of a not too bad schedule and a team that already seemed to be on the rise, they brought in Sam Darnold to at least be the replacement for Geno Smith. And while I still believe that Geno Smith was probably the better fit there because at least he knew how that scheme was going, I do have them having a floor of 8-9 and a ceiling of 10-7. I think they could be right where they were last year. Maybe they can win an additional game and go 11-6, but that's going to depend on how much their defense improved during this offseason. And so if my predictions are correct, the number 1 team would be the Rams, 2 would be the 49ers, 3 the Seahawks, and 4 the Arizona Cardinals. And so now the Seahawks and Cardinals, I did predict them to both have a 10-7 ceiling, so it might just be a tiebreaker that is going to make the difference there. And Cardinals, this is your chance. Do well by me. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. You guys, me at TomGrossiComedy.com. A big shout and thank you to all the Patreon members and YouTube members for supporting this channel. And thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.